Hold on. And we are live. Hello and welcome to another episode of the weekly FreudenFreude podcast, where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
Hi, I'm Sandra Coroni,
And I am Claudia, and we
and we are
coaches.
coaches.
There we go. We are coaches.
So I am a coach for mid-management, neurodiverse community, and young professional.
And I'm a professional coach working mostly with professionals, corporate leaders, entrepreneurs, as well as their teams in tech and beyond. There we go. We got the intro out of the way, but tell us maybe a little bit before we get started on our session about your background. Are you in a hospital room?
Yes, I am in a hospital room, and I am here with my husband. Today he has had a surgery for his shoulder. So a year ago, so maybe some of you might remember, a year ago, he had a surgery to reconstruct his, what is it called, hon? The clavicle. And so he had a plate installed, or, what is it, titanium plate installed. Now it's time for it to be removed. And that's what we're doing today. So he's doing pretty well. He's already nagging. So trust me, he's doing pretty well.
Good. There's moments in life where we are happy when our husbands nag us, and this is about one of them. Okay, so free pass today for Rodrigo. Fantastic. So today, another episode in our Intercultural Intelligence series. We're still
Mhm.
going through the 101s on the cultural dimensions, which are
Yes.
essentially lenses through which we can view a situation, a behavior, a context through the lenses of culture. And I think what's going to be interesting today, at least from my perspective, as I refresh my memory in more detail, is that we see how certain things, certain cultural dimensions are more closely linked to other cultural dimensions that we have previously seen. So try to figure out, yeah, so is this more of a high power distance thing? Is this more of a collective versus individualistic things? Is this more a meritocracy thing? So, it starts to show that all of these are, yes, very important an individual lens to look in, but we start to see these patterns where some of these behaviors and ways of being in
Mhm.
certain culture groups are kind of intermeshed, and it makes sense if you think about it just a little bit. Before I give it to you, Sandra, I want to give the thing again that these lenses talk about extremes, okay? And we talk about the extreme case of competitiveness and the extreme case of cooperation. We are never all the time one or the other. It's on a sliding scale, and there goes the cell phone.
Yes.
We are on a sliding scale, right? Depending on the situation, depending on who you're working with. You might in some instances be more competitive. In other senses, you might be more cooperative. And there's nothing
Mhm.
right or wrong about all this. It's just
Yeah.
something when we look at something and maybe we come across a person that we just don't get, or it doesn't click, or a situation that just doesn't fit into our way of how we would approach it, maybe sometimes thinking about all the other people that are involved in that. Do they share your same kind of stance on this or not?
Correct.
So how would you introduce cooperation versus competition, Sandra?
Oh my gosh. I haven't actually put it in short words or in a way that it's summarized. All I know is that you said it very well. People don't understand each other, right? And when you don't understand each other, you have to wonder what is the mindset and where are they coming from? What are their values? What are their beliefs? And if I were to say competitive, this would be a person individualist, right? This is a person that is looking to um, be recognized individually. They're looking for, they're chasing after the carrot all the time, and they want it only for themselves. Now, the cooperative, this is the one where there's empathy, there is working together, there's looking for goals in common. So that is all I can think of to say, to shorten the description in 3 phrases for each one. So I don't know if that makes sense. What would you
Well,
describe it?
if you allow me just to be lazy today and just read the definition that I have here on my
Certainly.
notes, it's this cultural dimension refers to the spectrum of attitudes and behaviors
Mm-hmm.
within a society regarding collaboration and rivalry. At one end
Mm-hmm.
of the spectrum, again, spectrum, okay, it's just an end of a spectrum, lies
Yeah.
a culture that values cooperation, emphasizing teamwork, collective goals, and mutual support. On the
Mm-hmm.
other hand, lies a culture that prioritizes competition, emphasizing individual achievement, meritocracy, and self-interest.
Very
So
good.
I couldn't have said it better, so why would I try? The See, the thing is, I really think that it matters. Maybe we should start even with a business example. I'm a team
Mm,
coach. And, very often when you get pulled into a team, it is a lot of the conflict is because they don't gel together because everybody is too self-centered, too competitive in their own self in order to bring up truly collaborative joint goals. How can
mm,
my contribution be best used? How can I be best used? And really the sense of teamwork, the way that we have kind of known to see it and love it. On the other hand, in a previous life of mine, I was in industrial sales. Okay.
mm,
So I was part of a sales team where you had to go out and bring in the money essentially.
mm,
You were there
mhm,
to really help these companies. It was a very involved sales process. We were very big on post-sales support, so there was a lot of collaboration going on with the client. There was a
mm,
lot of collaboration going on within ourselves to provide ourselves the best presentation, the best assets to make the sale possible. But the reason why all of us were on the sales team is because inherently we were very competitive, right? I think
yeah.
that there was this element of, I'm going to reach quota, and it wasn't necessarily competitiveness towards your peers, but competitiveness towards making your quota, towards, being, you know, having your tool selected and not the competitor's tool. So there was this competition. You had to kind of face it, because if you were truly only collaborative and only kind of nice, I think you wouldn't necessarily fit into an organization like that. There had to be a little bit of this go-getterness that comes from that, right? And just as a parenthesis, I did really well in that job, so I can be competitive if you need to. But you see how even within the same company, depending on the situation and the team that you're in, the slant might be slightly different, and it doesn't make one better than the other. They're just different. Have you had
Yes.
experience like that?
I was thinking about it as I was getting a refresher today about this, a situation where I experienced that. And of course, I come from the US, right? So our culture is all competition. And I was remembering today the case of a girl. She was from Australia. Well, is still alive. So she's from Australia. And I would be constantly competing with her. And I can bet you that she had no idea that that was my mindset. Okay. She was always on top if everybody was talking about her. Everybody was always, reaching out to her, just wanted to talk with her. And I would say, that should be me. I know more about the topic than she does. And I didn't understand that. And I was constantly competing with her. I never won. I never won. Exactly. Because probably I was approaching it in the wrong way. Right. So I still believe that if I would have understood that she was just a different person, that she had traveled back then, she was the daughter of a military expat. Okay, so she had traveled the world. They had lived experiences.
I'm sorry, Sandra. Are you maybe holding your cell phone by obscuring the microphone? Your audio thing went kind of off a little
No,
bit. No?
no,
Okay.
the audio is fine. No, it's only the side of the camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, it's probably because they came to clean, so maybe that was obstructing the noise. So yeah, sorry about that. There's going to be some interruptions here and there. Yeah, so if I would have had the understanding and the knowledge that she was coming from a different culture, that she was coming from a different background, or her values were different, that she was just being her natural self, I would have just minded my own business and not live that frustration of having to compete with somebody that was absolutely not competing with me at all. She was just being herself. And I also want to mention, well, that would be another example. And let's go on with something else. What is that you would want to say?
yeah, and I think that points out really this thing that we have our own preferences, our own cultural ways of doing it, because part of
Yes.
that is personality, part of that is culture, of course, that brings out either this cooperative side or maybe this more competitive side of you. And one of the caveats is not to project our our ways of doing it onto others. I think that that's always a great fallacy because I'm, let's say, competitive. Everybody else is assuming that everybody else is competitive. Or,
Yes.
when you're cooperative, not even seeing that other people in this joint venture or whatever are actually very, very competitive and might even take advantage of your cooperation. And so I
Yes,
think that it's
exactly.
the reason why this matters is it's about understanding ourselves, yes, but it's also understanding others that are around us and therefore making a little bit more sense of the context and being able to modulate our behavior to be best suited to that particular environment.
Yes. I think this is my idea. And the more I think about it, the more you talk, the more I think about it. And I believe that her mindset was cooperative, mine was competitive, right? And I always felt that she wanted information and that she wanted to use it for her benefit. So I held back a lot of information. I held back on many things because I would constantly be thinking, she's going to use it to be better and do better things with my work, and I would not be recognized. That's what I think it came down to.
Yeah,
Insecurity.
but because if she, no, not necessarily insecurity, but just competitiveness, I guess. If her is all like, let's get the information together, let's work together to make it even better, to advance and to, two is more than one in terms of putting heads together. But, on the other hand, you were like, this is my baby. And if I give her information, she's out to get me. So, it was protection. But it can, we see through examples like that how it's really incredibly hard to not misunderstand on occasions. And then also look at it from a leadership perspective, because leaders might have people of all colors, let's say,
Yeah.
in terms of this cultural dimension, on their team. And, how does the leader need to wrap this situation or this team, that people understand that here in this bubble is one of my favorite words when it comes to teamwork, but it's a bubble that we create and in which we have autonomy. uh, in this bubble we are going to be cooperative, right? Like check
Mhm.
your ego at the door. But it's not as easily done, because when people are culturally trained, for a better word, to be competitive, it's very hard to become collaborative.
Yes.
If
Yes.
people have always grown up, let's say, in an environment that was very cooperative, and collaborative, and all of a sudden they need to become competitive, let's say on a sales team or something like that, they might also have very hard time with it. Okay.
I think about what you were saying, that you were competitive, yet you come from a very cooperative culture. And I see it, I see that you understood that that was your job. That is part of who you have to be. But outside, when it came time to be a team player, you did it. You were part of it. You enjoyed it, and you did everything like it was asked of you to cooperate and find a purpose together, right? So I think I also understand that it's not wrong. The problem is when, as a competitive mindset comes and wants to work with a cooperative mindset, it is so hard. It was hard for me. And I'm sure that for you, you're competitive, so maybe the US was not an issue for you, but for me, it was.
Yeah,
It
I was
definitely
I
was.
was able to kind of integrate on both sides relatively easily, and I think that is what, in cultural intelligence education circles, we call this flexibility, right? You might
Mhm.
initially be quite competitive and not really able to stretch yourself to, understand or work with collaborative people. But, as you gain more understanding, awareness, training, and so on, you can stretch that. So then you can much more gracefully navigate the demands, whether they be more competitive or more collaborative. So I think that, it's one of the reasons why we try to make this series, is to raise awareness in the general population about,
Right.
what these factors are. One of the interesting things is actually, what does this do? And I had done a little bit of I took some notes earlier, sorry. Was that this can even already be challenging for our children and youngsters in school. Okay.
Mm.
Because in a cooperation-oriented educational system, they might emphasize things like group projects, cooperative learning, peer tutoring, and things like that, right? It's all about collaboration and knowledge sharing and all those
Mm.
kinds of things, right? Well, then you have more competition-oriented schooling, where the education system may place greater emphasis on standardized testing, academic rankings, individual achievements, and measures of success. Okay. I
Right.
remember that in France, at university I was studying at, they would, for everybody publicly to see, post your grades and your position in the school.
Oh
Okay.
my
And
gosh.
then the bottom X percent would be considered failed. It was the strategy of the school to fail the bottom. I don't remember exactly how many percent, but it was a sizable percentage, definitely over 10%. They would literally fail the year and would need to repeat the year or leave the school, no matter how good their grades really were. It was just a cutoff, like in some of those crazy reality shows. If you're underneath the red.
Yeah.
And but for somebody who for me, that, for instance, was hard, even though I have, the ability to be competitive, even though I have to, it just didn't sit right with me. This absolute focus on ranking and grades. The US is heavy on standardized testing and things like that. So what do you think that kind of more competitive oriented schooling had as an effect to you or some of the people you know?
Actually, what I remember is that I would get upset, but I would get upset in a competitive way to say, oh no, this person cannot be better than I can, because obviously you would poke fun of the ones that the 10 last ones, you would poke fun of them and tell them, hey, you got a lower grade or you got a 6 or whatever. Um, and I actually remember that I enjoyed that because then I would put double effort into it. And I would, you know, I'm trying to focus here because we have here the nurse giving my husband medication. Um, I think for me was good. It it actually pushed me to do better things. So I didn't think about it because it was not in my head to say this is not right. It was the normal thing to do, right? So
Right.
I didn't think about it that much.
Actually, what you described also gave me a lot of fuel in the tank, as you want to say it, in terms of my high school years, my two last high school years. There were just three of us, and we would take turns always being the first in class. Yeah, I was a nerd, people. Yeah, signing up. Go nerds, go nerds. And there it was like that, this kind of
For
fun,
sure.
pushing, and am I gonna get like this 1 point more than the other ones? Because it was always a
Yes.
matter between, like,
Yep.
in sports it would be hundreds of a second, right? I mean, difference.
Yes.
And that was fun. I think the thing in France of having like several hundred people posted on the list, that was too much. See, in the class it was a more intimate space, and there you could make fun of it. But having it, globally, across a school, I think was a different feeling to it altogether, which points to, the acceptability of something in a culture group. I would go so far as to say that a classroom where you have spent, 2, 3 years always with the same people, and there's a certain sense of camaraderie and so on, and you have your own ways of doing things, maybe the same sense of humor or things like that, that becomes its own culture group. And in
Yes.
there, sharing grades was okay. But in the context of a school of several thousand students overall, and maybe I don't know how many in a I mean, in a year, I don't exactly remember how many were in a year, but that was a different culture group. And what you tolerate in one, you don't necessarily tolerate in another. And
Mhm.
we are part of very many culture groups, and sometimes something might bother us in one and not in the other. So I think that is interesting to know about yourself as well.
You're making a good point. You're making me think about my school years. Gosh, Claudia, you're making good points today. I'm thinking about, like you say, imagine, let's say, in a group of students, that was what we were like 35 students, 32, 35. And there was a competition, right, going on and you would build your own little groups so that you can push each other forward and, get good grades and stuff like that. And I always remember that it was about this mindset of, I am better than you. Okay. The grades determined who were the best, who were the top five. The grades determined who deserved to be respected and who would you go for advice and stuff like that. So thank you for reminding me those days of school. That's incredible to remember.
But I think that's actually quite interesting because, at the very least, this teacher did not pit individuals against individuals. Because in your pod, in your little group of five or whatever, you had to still work together and learn these collaboration and cooperation skills, even if the groups themselves were kind of competing with each other. I think that is
Mhm.
maybe a reasonable, balanced approach, to teach both things, to maybe make the true like dyed in the wool cooperative people a little bit more competitive, and have the super competitors learn how to collaborate a little bit for the greater group of that pod. So very
Yes.
interesting, very interesting. So, actually, in industry, there is this term called co-opetition. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And it's
Mhm.
kind of a strategy or mindset where, I think either individuals or whole companies, organizations cooperate with some competitors while also competing against them sometimes, right? It's
Yeah.
like you might have a strategic alliance with a truly competitor to maybe share some technology, but in the end, you're still after the same market share. So, the lines get blurred there a little bit. And I think I really don't know to what extent it's actually favorable or not. Maybe it depends on the execution and the degree to which this is done. Because yes, you can have synergy in some cases, but isn't there some ambiguity as it relates to strategy, or what's the long-term impact of something like that? So, that's maybe food for thought, and something maybe that somebody in our audience can chime in on, to see what were their experiences with co-competition. Competition, yes. Difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about the education system. What would you think would be, maybe some of the characteristics of businesses on both sides of the spectrum?
Wow. So in terms of a business, I think, let me see if I'm understanding correct. You want me to give an example of what would be a business? How would it look like for a business to be cooperative? And how would a competitive business look like? Is that correct?
Right.
Yes. Okay. So this is what I think. Remembering my time when I was working for a chemical company, the chemical company had a cooperative mindset, right? And in that mindset, you had also people that were competitive, right? And but I think it has a lot to do, sorry. I think it has a lot to do with the company can try their best in trying to make the company cooperative, but if the individuals that work in it are not working together to follow the values and the beliefs of the company, you really can't do much unless you're constantly training these people and helping them, coach them in this case. Now that we understand what coaching can do, you can only through coaching and through constant training get these people on track to understand that these are the values of the company and we need to work together. Competitive companies I have to say, and this is where I'm hoping that it is understand what I'm trying to say. Again, I believe that all companies try to create that cooperative mindset. But when you are raised in a society that it is constantly looking for individualistic achievements, it is too hard. But it doesn't mean that they're not successful. I mean, look at all these companies out there. There's a
Mhm.
lot of companies that have that thing of cooperative, but their employees are individualistic. Expats are individualistic. We're individualistic, yet we learn how to live with cooperative societies, right? In order to survive.
Right.
So I don't know if I can make it any better or any clearer, because I'm not sure if there's ever a company out there that I can say this is a competitive company and they failed,
Right.
or
I
this
think
is a cooperative company and they failed.
Right. I think that on that level, as we look at the workforce, there's always going to be a large diversity of personalities, personal preferences, cultural background, and things like that. And I think that it's very often the challenge of the leader to, not take somebody and turn them from competitive into cooperative, but to bring them maybe a little bit along on the spectrum and make them do their
Mm-hmm.
work in a collaborative way, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's skill, sometimes it's just you know just talking about it, or sometimes even no here like acknowledging that these people have these struggles and nevertheless
Mm-hmm.
allowing the whole person to come to work and then stretch themselves hopefully to learn or assimilate also the way of collaborative work, right? We
Right.
are not out to change people. We are out to maybe give them a little bit more flexibility in how they behave and react, and hopefully getting different perspectives, because as for instance competitive people understand more about what a cooperative person is, or a cooperative mindset in a team is, will also then hopefully feel that it makes sense in that bubble again, right, to do that and to come together and work better together.
You know what? If I were to think about how my husband did it in order to work with this society, because this is a cooperative society. Um,
And tell anybody again where this is.
oh yes, Saudi Arabia. Sorry. So Saudi Arabia is very cooperative. They do have, again, like every other society, the individualistic desire of being, recognized. Okay. But they do work together. And I have here something that um let me see. Oh, thank you, honey. I wanted to say something. Oh yeah, I realized that the best thing to do things is to be curious. Okay, to be curious, and I had to do it little by little. As I was studying, as I was going through the times, as I was going through the waves of the up and down, the cultural values, and all this kind of stuff, I realized that my curiosity was the one that was saving me. So we don't know how to be curious, Claudia. We tend to look away rather than to try to understand. And I believe that that's another one of the things that we have to start trying to help other people to see, that the more you listen, and the more curious you are, the better you listen, and the
Right.
more you understand. You don't have to accept it, but you can understand it.
Right. And I think there's this self-awareness and the understanding of others is, will already mitigate so many of the let's say, problems in the world. Not
Mhm.
only in families, not only at the workplace, not only in communities, but in general, I think. Not to project our things onto others, but really listen, understand what's going on. So,
Mhm.
good point there. Good point there. I think, however, did you want to say something more? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
wanted to say that I also did my little notes, just like challenging questions. So, if we ever get to that point, I have some. So forgive
Okay.
me if I also read, but
Right.
not now.
I think that we have talked a lot about the cooperatives mindset and the competitive mindset of individuals, but I also even think that businesses can have this collective mindset that's either one or the other, and that will reflect in their business practices, in
Mhm.
cultures or organizations that maybe are more cooperation oriented. We might see things like partnerships, joint ventures,
Yeah.
maybe more collaborative decision-making processes. And hand in hand with that often goes long-term relationships and shared success. I think that makes sense. Versus business practices in competitor oriented cultures might be much more aggressive. Companies focusing on outperforming their rivals, gaining this market share no matter what
Yeah.
cost, and therefore also achieving this organizational success. And sometimes they are even okay with the success being short lived. Because
Mhm.
at least we are the winner now, and after us the deluge. And so I think that even in terms of business practices, you can maybe see this as this a very, I mean, all companies are profit based, so there's some measure of competitive in
Yes.
there. Itness in there, and again, this is a spectrum, okay? But is this a company that's amenable to joint ventures and to collaborations with other companies or universities or whatever? Are there some that are giving back because when they give back and maybe sponsor a university project or something, that there's something coming back to them? It's a different way versus does profit at all costs, truly competitive, going after the market share and so on. And again, I don't think that all of these things are mutually exclusive. I think it is in the realm of the possible to find a balanced approach to this. Enough of this and enough of that, to
Yeah.
make it work. But it depends on the country, on the people, on the product, on the workforce. It depends on so many factors, and that is what makes the job of a CEO and an executive team really, really, really challenging. So that's right. That's it right there.
That's it. It makes me think about, how many times, if we're talking corporations, we can also extend it at some point to political parties, right? That's why you have the left, the right, the center, right? We're all pulling for the same thing and we're all wanting the same thing. So I can tell you, for example, uh, politics wise, just without mentioning anybody in particular, just giving what happened. So there was this type of political party that had like three winners. Okay, three winners, three really good candidates. But because you throw in enough money to one candidate, you have to negotiate, right? Let's remember that working in cooperation with others is obviously for a means to a way, which normally is this, right? Money. So if you learn to work with others, you're going to still achieve what you're doing, which is working to have money, working to be able to pay your bills. So I remember that this political party in the US, the candidate that was stronger, that everybody liked the most, started, I won't say, they started talking with the other candidates, okay, and they started offering them obviously good positions, and they wanted to say, what is more interested, no, what is more important for you, being the president or having this position? And clearly, I'm pretty sure everybody would say, I want to be the president, right? But at the end, it's either learn how to swim or you sink. So they learned how to swim. And now, unfortunately, those good candidates were not presidents, but they did hold very good positions in the government. So again, I think what people forget is that being a cooperative society does not make you, does not does not take away your goal, which is making money, which is achieving things at the end of the day. The problem is that when you're in a competitive society, everybody wants to be first, right? They're all stacking up to see who's first, who becomes the next vice president, who becomes the president, who's this and that. I don't know how cooperative societies decide who is the best. So I would like to hear your part of how it's decided who is best.
Well, maybe the criteria are different. Maybe there is not one single winner. Maybe it's the collective or the group or the party that is considered a winner. I mean, I'm speculating here, right? Yes, there is going to be somebody in charge, but maybe even though that one person is in charge, the other ones can rest assured that they live in a cooperation, that they live in a collective. And this is why cooperative societies and collectivism go very often hand in hand, that's truly a representative. It's not the king, not the one that makes all the decisions, but it is the representative that represents everybody. And, if there's really a spirit of cooperation, then, there will be this ongoing discussion and this reflecting on solutions and decisions within the group. It would be interesting to watch. I'm not one to follow politics closely, so I cannot give you a specific example. But I think that that's also one of the challenges, to use the metrics of one group as a metric on the other group, right? Your question was, how do you determine the one? And the one, yes, you might in name be the president or the prime minister or the king or whatever it is, like the top dog there. But in some, even in some countries, that position is mitigated. Even though you can't, it's not a dictatorship, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's very interesting to see. But let's move away from politics, dear. Okay?
No, I was asking about, for example, for you, because can you say that your society, it is cooperative or competitive? How would you determine it? Luxembourg.
It's pretty competitive. It's only cooperative if you're in the right club, I would say. Right? If it's
Okay, that's why my
know,
question did
the,
not hit. Okay.
the old boys club and those, they cooperate to help their people out, but as a whole I would think that it's fairly competitive. Yeah. But again,
Okay,
it
gotcha.
doesn't in itself, a competitive society is not good or bad. It just is what it is, and there's ways in both of them to flourish or to drown, right? So it's very
Yes.
interesting. But we talked about politics, we talked about businesses, but I can even
Oh.
imagine something like Imagine that two soccer teams come together for a friendly match on the weekend. Friendly match on the weekend. No
Mm,
trophies involved, no money involved. Just let's get together and have fun. But imagine if one team comes and they're all about let's have a good time, let's be sportsmen, let's do sportsmanship, let's up our teamwork and so on. And then on the other hand, you have this truly aggressive, gotta win at all costs other team,
yeah.
that's very aggressive in needing to come out on top. I can imagine that can be quite a challenging match to play, even though it's just in the park on the weekend. What do you think?
Um, yes, I know both sides. Um, and I can tell you because sometimes we forget that there's also the personality, right? The individual person, the person's individual personality. And I have to say that if I was to insert myself in the example, I was the one team player that ruined it for everyone. I was so competitive, okay, that everybody was like, hey, we're just playing. This is just a game. And I would be like, I wanted that. Yes, I wanted that win. I would play basketball and soccer. Okay. And I was so competitive. I would get so upset and I would scream and I guess I guess again, even though I lived in Mexico City for some time, you cannot take away what you've learned since you were a child, right? To be competitive coming from the US and then going to a country where everybody's like, chill, it's okay. Let's have fun. I couldn't. And I was constantly fighting and I was constantly doing this. So let's remember that one of the things that it mentions when you look up any spectrum of cultural intelligence is that it is the description of individualistic and cooperation in this case has a lot to do also with the personality of the person. The person can be very flexible and want to be cooperative like me. I wanted to be that let's just have fun. But I was so impulsive that I would forget as soon as I would feel that I was losing, I would forget everything about cooperation and I would go after that ball and I would just try to land those goals or just those 3 pointers. I would forget about everything, right? So I think I agree with you about, you have the competitive team and you have the cooperative team. It it it's fun to watch because you see that in the soccer games, like in the friendly games, when you're watching sports on TV, you see it's a friendly game. And what does it end up happening? There's always that Sandra that is on the field kicking somebody's butt.
Oh,
So, it is what it is. We always try, but we forget. You can't take out the competitive person out of the person.
no. I mean, and it's we also know, and I know this, very much from like conflict resolution and things like that, that when stressors run high, deadlines are looming, or you have conflict within a team or conflict between two people and things like that, the moment that you're supposed to be able to communicate the most is when you're the least able to. And why is that? It's when you're under these stress situations, your like visceral reactions come out. And if you're a very competitive person, you're going to be very competitive, let's say at a mediation table, and my
Mm.
way or the highway, and you bang the table, and it's stuff like that. And unfortunately, you see it that sometimes you have people on the other side of the table that might be more into the cooperative mindset and things like that, that in situations like that make suboptimal decisions because, they want to rescue the relationship. They want to, keep things going. And very often they make concessions that in the end are not really necessarily in their long-term best interest. And so it's sometimes really challenging for one to integrate the other, or and vice versa. I think that there's
Mm-hmm.
challenges both ways, and I think that the more you know and the more you're aware of, hopefully, will not blind you so much in those stressful situations. Meaning that you do not become the ball crazed Sandra, but you actually somewhere in the back of your mind remember, oh, this was just supposed to be a friendly game. Why don't I,
Yes.
give the ball to my friends, so they can also
Yes.
enjoy the afternoon. And so I
Yes.
really think that so much goes into this, and I hope we have been able to articulate it a little bit, okay. Because it goes about this balanced approach. In cooperation oriented cultures, you might see more of an emphasis on community and solidarity, teamwork, right? They might build consensus differently. They might do collective decision making in a very different way. And if you're a leader and you have the job of bringing your team to make these collaborative decisions, whether it be in the boardroom or on a ground level floor team, right, that you realize that, yeah, so there's different ways of approaching the same thing. And sometimes you need to talk it out, or you have to take the reins in hand and say, this is the kind of decision we're going to make in this case today, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
not going
Mm-hmm.
to be a unanimity kind of decision. This is going to be, a best worst case solution, and we
Mm-hmm.
already know that. So let's keep our egos in check and come up with the best solution, and so on. Competition oriented cultures, I think we talked about this individual achievement being at the forefront. And I think they also define success very differently, right? Because what a success in competition is different from success in a cooperation. Okay, joint
Mm-hmm.
success
Mm-hmm.
versus individualistic success.
Absolutely.
The hunt for reward, I think, might also be stronger in a competitive oriented culture. And I also think, even now that I think of it, is that they may have a bit more of a tolerance for conflict. Because when you grow up, let's say, in a competitive environment, you're always in conflict. Everything in essence is a fight, right? To come out
Yes.
on top. And so maybe there's this, you didn't have any choice but to become a street rat in essence, right? And build that backbone and learn that 1,000 mile stare. And it's really true that can be the case. So again,
Yeah.
iterate it again, Sandra, that these are extremes, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I think if I think about it, the competitive mindset has a lot of challenges. They're questioning everything. How is this going to make them look better than the other team? How is this going to help them stand out from the other team? It's the challenge of, is this more work for me? Is this making me look dumb? Is this not giving me enough responsibility? So sometimes I feel that the competitive mindset is never happy, right? Because you're always wondering, how is this going to make me look better? And at the end, if you decide, if your beliefs are that it is not making you look good enough, then you're always having that internal conflict.
Right. And even if you win,
So
aren't you always,
I
sorry. Go ahead. I said
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
even if you win, then you're worried about the runners up coming and taking it away from you, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It is hard. It is I think one of the best ways to help that kind of mindset is to challenge and to say, where's this coming from? Ask them, do they know about somebody that works in a different way? How is this benefiting the other person? How is this working for you so far? This kind of mindset, right? So you challenge the people. You don't say that, like you said at the beginning, there is no right or wrong. The problem is when you find yourself in a constant conflict, which makes it wrong. If you're satisfied with your competitive behavior and it's working for you, fine. But think about this. Eventually, you're going to want to travel to another country that does not think like you, that does not believe in the same things as you do, and their goals are totally different, or the ways that they achieve their goals are totally different. So, what are you going to do?
Right.
Right? I think people forget that someday you're going to leave your comfort zone or your little bubble to go into another bubble.
Right. Or you might just get a
That's what I
different
think that
boss,
happens a
or
lot.
you might just get a different boss or move to a team two doors down, and all of a sudden, the situation and how things are done around here is different. So it's not, again,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that either one of these two is bad, good or bad. I think it's just like, if you are where you are, can you be enriched by understanding and maybe even integrating into your way of doing certain ways that the other side of the spectrum does? Would it be nice to
Mm-hmm.
become more balanced or move more to the middle, that you can be either or and build up this kind of flexibility and still remain comfortable? And I think that that's what cultural intelligence very often is about. We live in a very global workplace. We Zoom with people all over the planet, that come from different cultures. There's business joint ventures everywhere. And I think that having this way of recognizing, oh, okay, I see they are more corporation oriented. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh my God, they're really competitive. So now I can go all out. Or, I have to
Yeah.
maybe be a little bit more competitive. That gives you data points. Data points. We are not here to
Mm-hmm.
change anybody, but it gives you additional data and additional ways
Mm-hmm.
of responding to a situation, that might make it more beneficial for you in the long term, in your job, in your personal and private spheres. I think that that's
Exactly.
maybe even a good place to stop.
I love it. I think that's a good way to end today's section. What do you think?
Good,
I love
good.
it.
So actually, everybody, this is the last FreudenFreude until April. Yes, tell us why, Sandra.
Okay, so I finally got approved by the government to take my dogs out of Saudi Arabia. That was the most stressful process of all. And when am I leaving? I'm repatriating next week. Next week, yes, yes. Wednesday at 12:25 a.m. leaves my flight, and I say goodbye to Saudi Arabia. I don't know if it's going to be forever. You never know when it's going to be. Life goes. What did they say? What's the real? Uh, uh, this world it just goes around, right? So you never know when there's going to be a chance to come back for whatever reason. So for now, I say goodbye to Saudi Arabia next week, and I will be in Houston, Texas. Oh,
There
home.
we
I will
go.
be home.
She will be home. So, in order to give her time to move and get settled in, we decided to take the months of March off. And so we
Yes.
will see you again in April. Again, thank
Yes.
you everybody for listening. This has been great fun today, actually. It was good to research this again and get it again top of mind. And it if you like this kind of content, if you have any comments, suggestions, please get in touch with us. Our contact information is going to be in the show notes, and Sandra's contact info is not going to change, so you will still be able to reach her on social media.
Yes.
Also, if you like the content, please give our channel some love. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. Otherwise, engage with our content through a like or a comment. So that would be definitely helpful. And Sandra, bon voyage.
Thank you, Claudia. And I will talk to you, but not to the rest of the people. But however, like Claudia said, if you want to reach out to me, I'm still on social media. I just expect a little bit of delay because I am going to be very diligent in trying to put my house together for me to be ready in April.
Well, there you go, as it
Thank you.
should be. And I still have a little bit of space in my calendar. So if anybody looks for a coach or a team coach or a mediator, reach out. All
Yes.
righty, take out everybody. Okay,
Thank
bye.
you. Bye.